Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. My name is Sean Courtney, and I'm the Marketing and Communications Officer at TechSoup New Zealand. Our webinar today, Managing the New Charity Reporting Requirements with MYOB and Calxa, will be presented by Mick Devine, CEO and co-founder of Calxa. Just a bit of housekeeping for today. We'll aim to pause roughly halfway through the webinar to answer any questions you might have, so please type them through as you go. And we'll also aim to save some discussion time at the end of the webinar. That's all from me, so I'd now like to hand over to Mick. Thank you, Mick.
Thank you, Sean. Good morning, everybody, or it's probably afternoon for most of you. I'm on the other side of the water doing this, but welcome anyway. So what I want to do today is talk a little bit about the new reporting requirements for charities in New Zealand and how we can help you produce those reports easier. That's the goal of what we're trying to do. So we'll talk a little bit about the reports generally, which may be stuff that most of you already know, but I just want to make sure we're all talking about the same stuff, and then talk about how Calxa works with MYOB to simplify that process of generating these reports, and then talk about what we should do next. So the first thing that you need to work out is which set of reports you need to produce, and basically that depends on the size of your organization. And there's 4 tiers altogether, and our focus is mainly on the people in tier 4 and tier 3. I am talking to one organization that's doing some tier 2 reporting, and if any of you are in that category, happy to talk and see what we can do. I mean, the principles are the same, it's just more of it. So tier 4 is the really small organizations, and it's based on your annual payments, and if they're under $125,000, that puts you in tier 4. And if you're in tier 4, you need to report on a cash basis. Even if your payments are less than $125 and you're reporting on want to report on an accrual basis, that puts you in tier 3 reports. And the other main criteria there is no public accountability. And organizations with public accountability are basically banks and credit unions, and I'd be highly surprised if there's any of those with doing less than $125,000 or even less than $2 million, the tier 3 cutoff. So tier 3 is the next group of organizations, and so payments between 125 and 2 million and reporting on an accrual basis. Then what's in the reports, and we'll have a look shortly at some examples of the reports and show you what we've done. But the basic concept in and tier 4 and tier 3 are fairly similar. It's just there's a bit more detail in tier 3, and the tier 4 ones are on a cash basis, tier 3 is on a accrual basis. So both start off with a table of contents, some entity information. So who are you, what do you do, what sort of services do you provide? The statement of service performance is about it's mainly quantitative, about how many services you provided, that sort of thing, with a bit of description in there as well. Statement of receipts and payments, so money in, money out. Statement of resources and commitments, that's what the rest of us would call a balance sheet, except because we're talking on a cash basis, the terminology is slightly different. And then your accounting policies, you know, how you account for assets, how you account for income, those sort of things. And then a bunch of notes, and not a huge amount of detail in the notes, but mainly on things that may have changed since the balance date, things that are out of the ordinary. And the Tier 3 reports, again, fairly similar. So the contents, the entity information, a bit more detail on the entity information. So a couple of extra questions you have to answer there. Statement of service performance, again, it's about the services you've provided, how many of them, you know, how many clients did you attend to, and the actual detail of that will depending on the type of organization you are and what you do for your clients. The statement of financial performance, so that's basically the profit and loss report, income, expenses, surplus, deficit. The statement of financial position, again, basically the balance sheet, so assets, liabilities, equity. Statement of cash flows, that's the historical backward-looking cash flow showing money in, money out of the organization for the reporting period. A bit more detail on the accounting policies for Tier 3, a bit more detail on the notes for Tier 3. So I guess one of the things that is probably different to the sort of reports most people have been doing in the past is there's a lot more text in there. Although, you know, a lot of it, like the accounting policies, won't change from one year to the other. So once you've got that set up, it's just a simple process to continue with that. Now, before I start on what we need to do in MYOB, what we need to do in Calxa, and showing you some of that stuff, does anybody have any questions at this time? We got any questions yet, Sean?
Hi, Mick. We haven't had any questions typed through so far, so I think you're all right to continue.
Okay. In that case, I'll keep going and assume that was all simple and possibly stuff that you already know. So we've been doing some work with with MYOB to try and make this process easier for people, and I'll outline the general theory first, and then I'll actually show you Calxa so you see what it looks like, and talk about what we do now with these reports and where we're improving that over the next few weeks to make it even easier. I don't want to overemphasize the easiness. There's still I don't think there's any way of avoiding some manual work in setting this up. It's just because the stuff to be written, stuff that is going to be different from organization to organization, and information that potentially doesn't exist anywhere else at this point. So just in terms of MYOB itself, I've been working with MYOB since 1993. I bought my first copy, and I spent about 10 years doing consulting work and helping with people with setup and training of MYOB before I put my developer hat on. So I like to think I know what I'm talking about, but feel free to disagree with me. But my just general guidelines, I mean, these reports are going to be as good as the underlying information. And if you don't if you don't have clean data in your MYOB, then your reports are going to be meaningless. So, and I think the key thing to getting MYOB right is making sure your balance sheet's right. So reconcile everything in your balance sheet. So, you know, you've got bank accounts, you can reconcile those against your bank statements. If you've got fixed assets, somewhere you should have a register of what they are and make sure that they exist, that they're still current. You know, there's nothing that's been disposed of that should be written off, that sort of thing. If you've got debtors, you've got creditors, make sure you haven't got stuff sitting there that's never going to get paid. Sooner you clean up that stuff, the better the quality of the information you're going to have is. And if you get the balance sheet side of things right, then the income expenses side of things just falls out from that. I am a fan of MYOB's Account Right 2015 and putting stuff online these days. I wouldn't necessarily have said that 3 or 4 years ago, but don't tell any of my MYOB friends that. No, you can tell them. I had conversations with them, but there were issues 3 or 4 years ago, which have largely been resolved now. And I think for most people, there are benefits to going online with the latest version. You get things like bank feeds that will automate a lot of your transaction processing and really speed things up. The smart bills feature, I think it's in its early days yet, but and it's not quite as good as it could be, but it does provide you a way of attaching documents to purchases. So when you look at a transaction, you can look at the source document really easily. Probably the exception to that would be any of you who need to deal with multi-currency transactions, probably the main one, because there's no multi-currency facility in Account Right 2015, in which case you're better off staying with Premier 19. Or if you're one of these unfortunate people that, well, maybe you're not unfortunate in other ways, but if you've got unreliable internet, then putting the data file online with Account Right 2015 may not be the best move. But just be aware that you can use Account Right 2015 and have your data file locally. So just have a think and explore those options. So, but the main point is to get the data in the MYOB file as good as you can get it. So I know the traditional way of doing all this reporting has been by spreadsheet, but and I used to be proud of some of the complex spreadsheets that I produced in the past. I had a lot of fun creating them, but you'll never delegate a spreadsheet to someone else, and you can never be entirely sure of the accuracy of it. And when you've got data in MYOB, data in spreadsheet, and you're trying to bring the two together, there's always scope for something going wrong somewhere along the line, no matter how clever we think we are. So what Calxa does is connects directly to your MYOB file. You can, if you've got budgets in MYOB, we bring them in from there. If you've got budgets in a spreadsheet, we can bring them in from the spreadsheet. If you've got no budgets at all and you need to create budgets, we've got a wizard that can help you take last year's actuals and create a budget using that. And then automate the reporting side of it. When you've got Calxa set up, it currently requires one click to update the data from your MYOB file and one click to generate a bundle of reports. And we're having a go over the next few months to automate that even further. So it's just to give you a bit of a background, what we do is the management reporting side of things. MYOB is great for doing your GST and your PAYE and getting all that general compliance stuff done, but it's not so reporting for management purposes, for board reports, for understanding and running the business. So we do budget reporting, we do cash flow forecasts, we do KPI reporting. We consolidate multiple organisations. If any of you have multiple MYOB files that you need to consolidate, if you're a group of charities, for example, and we try and present that in a way that's easy for non-accountants to understand. So I'll leave that slide for a moment and I'll actually show you what Calxa looks like and have a look at what we've done with the reports at the moment and then talk about where we're going from here. So I'll show you the reports first, and then, so if we look at the Tier 4 one first, so in Calxa we've got these report bundles where you just basically group a bunch of reports and then you go display bundle and it collects all the information for them and generates them all as one report, which you can then export as a PDF or to Excel or wherever else. So this is my sample Tier 4 report, which has a table of contents at the beginning. Then it's got the entity information, so the legal name, type of entity, a registration number, your purpose, the structure, and main source of cash. So very, general information about what sort of organisation you are, and then contact details. The next bit, statement of service performance, and that's got actuals and budget and last year actuals, and basically it's about the number of services that you provided compared to the previous year, compared to your budget, and some notes about whether you achieved your targets, whether you didn't, and if there was any additional information. And in Calxa we have we have a KPI editor where you can create this information here. In terms of getting the non-financial information in, we have a method of doing that at the moment, and we also have a new improved method for doing it, which is coming in the next couple of months. Statement of receipts and payments. So this is basically showing the bank at the beginning, net profit, adjustments for balance sheet movements, So it's basically the statement of cash flows, similar to what the accrual reporting is. Statement of resources and commitments, which is basically the balance sheet. I should actually update this one because this one should have a budget. It should have an actual and a budget column as well. But and then accounting policies. So simple format, cash reporting, registered for GST or not registered for GST. So doesn't want a huge amount of detail there. And then analysis of receipts. So this is actual receipts compared to the previous year. Same with payments. And that information's come straight out of the MYOB file. So there's no re-entry of that. There's no import export. Then there's some notes on correction of errors, related party transactions, events after the balance date, and additional information. So reasonably simple, but there's still 9 pages of information there at the Tier 4 level. The Tier 3 one, I think, goes on to about 20 pages or so, and similar information. So, and some of it exactly the same. So the contents, the entity information, statement of performance, the financial performance. So again, that's the profit and loss straight from MYOB. And you know, we can do things like change the terminology so we have operating surplus or deficit rather than net profit. Statement of financial position, that's the balance sheet. Again, I can add a budget column to this as well. So showing assets, liabilities, equity, and then the statement of cash flows. Accounting policies, a little bit more detail on the Tier 3 accounting policies, you know, things like income tax, bank accounts, and any other accounting policies and whether they've changed at all. Revenue analysis, so that's the same, just the income section of the profit and loss. Expense analysis, so again, your expenses come across from MYOB there. Property, plant and equipment, we can actually put that one in now. Accumulated funds, which is basically the equity section of your balance sheet. So all these different bits of information that have come across from the MYOB file, and then there's some stuff that needs to be manually entered. So commitments and contingencies, that wants a bit of text there of what the commitments are to lease, rent, assets, purchase property, etc., and putting a number in. And then there's a whole bunch of, on the next lot of notes, grants and donations, goods in kind, assets used as security, related party transactions. So a lot of notes there which just want some typing in of text. Now, I think I'm going to show you how we're doing this at the moment. But I'm also going to suggest that while I'm going to recommend that you get started with Calxa fairly soon, I'm also going to suggest that you hold off for a month or two on, or for a month or so on actually customizing and editing the reports because we are working on a better way of doing it. At the moment, if I look at my tier 3 notes there, for example, at the moment we use our report designer to edit the text there, and we did that just to see whether we could actually do this and actually produce these reports in Calxa. Because when my friends at MYOB first asked me about this about 3 or 4 months ago, I said, no, that's far too complicated doing Calxa. But sometimes when people ask you things more than once, you have to look at it again and say, okay, yes, I can do this, and I can do it in a way that's going to be easier than people doing it in spreadsheets. So it's fairly simple. You just go in there and type something, yeah, and put a number in, and that's done. And if I was good, I would have actually right aligned that and that one too. But in the next month or so, we're actually putting in a new text editor to our reports so that it'll be much simpler to put those notes in, to put tables in, and format them the way you want. So what we've got there at the moment works, but it's a little bit technical. It's not that scary once you've done it once, but it's a little bit on the technical side. But I've got the development team to have a look at what we could do better, and we have a plan, and we're working on that at the moment, and I'm hoping by Christmas we'll have that up and running, or soon after Christmas. Try not to get my development team to work on Christmas Day. So that's what the reports look like. In terms of connecting Calxa to your MYOB, in organization management here, to connect initially, you go create new from, select which type of MYOB you're using, and just follow the prompts. Basically, you need to log into your my.myob, and then when you want to bring across the latest data from MYOB, you just click the update button, and select that data file, log in. I don't think I had a password on it, and it will then bring across that latest information. And what I would strongly recommend is that you start work on this sooner rather than later. For most people, if you've got a March year end, reports aren't actually due till 6 months after that, which is September. But I think there'll be a great benefit to getting started early and generating these reports every month and having a look at them. I've been playing with my sample file. That wasn't a good idea, but that's all right. So that update process will bring across the data. Just to give you the quick guided tour while we're in here, you can edit budgets at a job or category level in MYOB. You can do them for up to 10 years ahead. You can have multiple versions of the budget, and from that there's a whole range of reports to compare actuals against budgets in different ways. There's cash flow forecasts, there's KPIs. You can, where's something interesting, wages to turnover. So if I can display that for budgets, actuals, last year budgets. So, haven't got any data on that. Okay, that wasn't a good one to pick at all. But so what we do is make that reporting process easier. And once you've worked out what reports you want, you add them into a report bundle, and you can have as many bundles as you want. So you might have one for your board reporting, one for your CEO, one for the different program managers, so they get information. Now, so I don't want to go into too much detail about that at the moment. Let's go back to my slideshow. So the details and instructions on what to do there, once you have Calxa, and we'll talk in a moment about how you get Calxa, are on our website, which is www.calxa.com. If you go to features and Calxa for not-for-profits in New Zealand, there's a page there with a basic explanation of what to do, and if you click on get the checklist, that takes you to the instructions on. We've got a sample file that's got all those bundles already set up, so you can download that sample file and follow the instructions and connect it to your data and get it all running from there. Now, so next steps I would recommend for you is, firstly, do that review of your MYOB file and make sure that's as clean as you possibly can get it. And then organize yourself a Calxa donation or discount. And we work with our friends at TechSoup to provide Calxa as a donation to smaller not-for-profits in Australia and New Zealand. And smaller in our context pretty much comes in the middle of the tier 3 category. So if any of you are in tier 4, you should qualify for the donation. There's some sort of category criteria, but basically if you're in the community social services out there helping people, you'll qualify. So if your turnover is less than $1 million, you get a donation. If it's over $1 million, TechSoup can help you with a discount. If I had been clever, I would have found the TechSoup website, but I didn't. But I'm going to assume you all know where the TechSoup website is, because otherwise you'd have had trouble finding this webinar. So if you can't find it, feel free to shoot me an email or Sean afterwards, and we'll help you. So donation for anyone with turnover less than $1 million, discount for anybody over that. I should say that we recently reached our initial target of giving away $1 million worth of Calxa, which I was very proud of our friends at Connecting Up for helping us with that. We started the donation program 4.5 years ago, and we really just plucked this number of let's give away $1 million worth out of the air. Had no idea how long it would take, and we've managed to do it in 4.5 years, and we're now starting on the next $1 million, and we're going to see if we can do that in 2 years. So, now, so get Calxa through TechSoup, get started with it, and get familiar with it. So connect Calxa to your MYOB, bring in your budgets, look at the existing reports, test it, review it. I would hold off for a month or so on putting in the policies, the notes, those sort of things. And some of the things like notes you won't have till after the end of the financial year anyway, so that will be in there and plenty of time for that. But just get familiar with everything and know that you've got the system set up running for when you need to be there. Now, next steps that we're working on, we've had this software out in the world for 5.5 years now, and I have to say it's still not finished. And it's a constant process of improvement. And some of the things we're working on over the next few months that will help with this reporting process. Beginning of January, we'll have that easier text editor for the notes and policies. By March, we'll have some improvements on what we're calling metrics, the non-financial KPIs. So that's the service provision side of things, where you'll actually be able to, we have a workaround for entering those at the moment, which is a little bit clunky, but by March we'll have the ability to enter those directly into Calxa for actuals and budgets and use them in KPIs, use them in reports. We're in the process of moving Calxa online. On Friday this week, we're releasing an update which will have online workspaces, so your data can be stored online, and that will work very similar to the way AccountRight 2015 works. So you'll be able to access that data from any location that's got that's running Calxa. So if you're off-site or you've got an accountant or an advisor who's off-site that helps you, they'll be able to log in as well. And one of the benefits of having the data online, especially if your accounting data is online, is that we'll be able to automate the synchronizing between them. So we'll be able to schedule when we update the data from your MYOB file and do that overnight or something like that. And what we'll also be able to do is schedule delivery of your management reports every month. So you'll be able to say, give me this bundle of reports on the second Tuesday of every month or the 7th of every month or whenever. So try and take a lot of that labor out of generating reports every month. Okay, I already talked about donations and talk to our friends at TechSoup. They're nice people. I'm sure you'll like them. And then contact us. There's a free trial of the software on the website as well if you want to have a look at that. Does anybody have questions? We got any questions, Sean?
Hi, Mick. Yeah, we've had a couple of questions that have come through. One is from D, who's just wondering, is the property, plant and equipment schedule all manually entered through Calxa?
Yes. Yeah, that'll be basically create a table and put it in. It will be put in manually or copy and paste it from a spreadsheet. We don't have any plans in the short term to do any maintenance of that sort of schedule.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mick. And just another question that's come through from Kathy. And I don't know if it was talked about in the slides earlier, but she was just wondering if you could talk about the requirements for Tier 2 reporting.
I can a little bit. Basically, Tier 2 is bigger organisations, turnover of more than 2 million. I think off the top of my head it's up to 20 million, but I don't quote me on that. And it's not. I don't know as much about the Tier 2 stuff as the Tier 3, but when there's basically a lot more detail in the notes side of things on tier 2. When and really it's I think I'm going to pass on that, but if you want to email me, mick@calxa.com, and give me a number, I'll give you a call. I really need to refresh my memory on that, because it's something I've focused mainly on the tier 3 and tier 4 reports, because that's the sort of size most of our customers are at. I have had a look at the tier 2 ones and had a discussion with one organisation and said, yes, in principle we can do the tier 2 reports, but I'm not qualified to say too much in public about that without refreshing my memory. So I apologise for that, but happy to take that one offline and refresh my brain and give you a call and talk about it there. How's that?
No worries. Thanks for that, Mick. And as Mick said, he's happy to continue that discussion offline, so you can email mick@calxa.com. Next question is from Sharon, who asks, does Calxa work with MYOB Essentials?
Yes, it does. It does. If I just go back to in organisation management, where you've got create new from, you've got MYOB Classic, which is the Premier 19, Account Right Live, which is the current 2015. I'm assuming nobody here wants MYOB Essentials Australia, but MYOB Essentials New Zealand will be what you need there. And then it's basically just log into my.myob, pick your essentials file, and it will bring the data across. So that will work fine.
No worries. Thanks, Mick. Next question is Maureen, and it's a little bit of a longer one, maybe 2 parts to it, so
Okay.
I can go over it again if you like. But so, firstly, Maureen says, is there any difference between the P&L report and the analysis in the notes of income and expenses? She goes on to say, if we want to show less detail in the statement of financial performance, do we limit the level and then can show more detail in the notes?
Yes, basically, it's the same underlying data, and if so the statement of financial performance, for example, in this one, I've actually run that at level 2, and what I've done that using the one of the things that we do have in Calxa is we have account trees where you can actually restructure your chart of accounts. So if I just go to the account tree section and just show you, because we do have a couple set up here, and basically what you can do is create new header accounts here. So there was one section of the analysis that comes with some preset headings for things like expenses related to public fundraising and volunteer and employee related costs, etc. So those headings there don't exist in my MYOB file. They exist in only within Calxa, and my Kiwi Saver should actually be under there, so I don't know why that got moved. But you can create new heading accounts, and once you've done that, you can just drag and drop accounts from one section to another. And then yes, run the reports at level 2, level 3 as you need to. What's the next question?
Thanks, Mick. Next question is from Xiao, who asks, does Calxa work well with Mac?
No is the short answer. The slightly longer answer, Calxa needs to run under Windows, we have customers running Calxa on Mac machine using something like Parallels to run Windows. But what we can't do is connect to MYOB Account Edge on a Mac. If you're running a Mac and you're using something where the data's online, like MYOB Essentials, then yes, we can connect to that. So, but if you're using MYOB Account Edge on a Mac, can't connect to that, and there's no way to connect to that physically. So so that's a sort of yes and no answer, but mostly it's no. And if you're using Account Edge, so far as I'm aware, there's no prospect of MYOB providing any program access to that data file in the near future, at least.
Great, thanks, Mick. Next question is from D, who asks, if we use Calxa Premier for not-for-profits and switch our subscription back to Express for the months not needed, will all organisations still be available in Express for the Express reporting?
Yes, absolutely. The data will all still be there. I probably shouldn't tell you this, but if you use Express and you customize KPIs and customize reports and things, they're still there when you use Express as well. For those of you who don't understand the details of that question, we have two versions of Calxa, Express and Premier. For most not-for-profits, I would suggest Premier is the most suitable product, and that's the one we do the donation for. Express is our simple small business reporting tool that does budgets at the organisation level and all the reporting at the organisation level. Premier gives you budgets by job and category. You can customize KPIs, you can customize reports, that sort of thing. So a lot more control, a lot more flexibility with Premier. But basic answer to your question there, D, is yes, you can do that, no problem.
No worries, thanks, Mick. And that appears to be all the questions that have come through now. So happy to wrap it up, or if there's anything else you'd like to touch on at all, Mick?
No, just if anyone's got questions, give me an email, mick@calxa.com, or if I put my phone number on the screen again. So we got a free call number from New Zealand, 0800 086 614. We are in Queensland, so we don't start quite as early in the morning as you do, but give us a call. And I think one of the things I should say, we have a support team here as well, so when you get started with Calxa, we're more than happy to help you get started, hold your hand if you need it, or if you prefer some on-site help, we've got a network of partners that we can refer you to for that on-site help if you want someone to help you set things up. Look forward to working with you all, and hope we can make life a little bit easier for you.
Great, thanks, Mick. So thanks very much for presenting today, obviously, and thank you everyone for joining. A link to a recording of the webinar and a copy of the slides will be sent to you all in the coming days, so please keep a lookout in your inbox. If you have any queries from the webinar, feel free to send them through to events@techsoup.net.nz, or as Mick said, you can contact Calxa and you can use that number 0800 086 614, or continue the discussion with Mick by contacting mick@calxa.com. And don't forget, lastly, to check out the TechSoup New Zealand website, newsletters, Facebook and Twitter for all the latest events, info and more. So thanks once again for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day.